Good morning, Rogues Gallery! Today, we're going to teach you how to play the Cyberpunk trading card game. The Cyberpunk TCG is a card game where you assemble your ultimate edge runner crew and outmaneuver and outplay your opponents, getting the best gigs possible, becoming a legend of Night City. It's honestly an incredibly approachable game that I feel like TCG veterans as well as newcomers to the genre can find a lot to enjoy and to sink their teeth into. My name is Kel, also known as Red Zone Rogue, and I am a full-time TCG content creator, a lifelong card player, and a World Championship shoutcaster. You could say that I'm a fairly entrenched TCG player and content creator, but I'm also a huge fan of Cyberpunk. I have hundreds of hours in Cyberpunk 2077. I've even covered and played the old Cyberpunk 2020 trading card game. I used to run my own Cyberpunk Red campaigns. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of the series. And today I'm going to teach you how to play the Cyberpunk trading card game the same way that I would teach any of my close friends or loved ones. We're going to try to make this as succinct as possible and as approachable as possible for new players to trading card games, while also hoping to answer a lot of the things that TCG veterans might ask themselves while learning to play the Cyberpunk trading card game, such as, is damage consistent through combats? Is there fast or instant speed timing windows? Is there a stack? We're going to talk all about that in today's video. And before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to Weirdco and the Cyberpunk trading card game for sponsoring today's video. Like I said, I'm a huge fan, so yeah, I'm excited to do this. Let's go ahead and jump into our top down and start talking about the Cyberpunk trading card game. For the purposes of this how to play video, we're going to be using the Cyberpunk TCG Alpha Kit sent to me by Weirdco, the creators of the Cyberpunk TCG. And I do want to mention right now, if this game looks interesting to you, I will have links in the description down below to their social media as well as to the Kickstarter for this game. If you're watching this in the future, hey, the Kickstarter might already be gone, but it still might be worth checking out all of their social media and all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to be using this good guy edge runner deck for illustrative purposes as we talk about cards and mechanics and all of that kind of stuff. As you can see here, we have cards that are depicting very iconic things from Cyberpunk 2077, but not just that, we will have stuff from stuff like Edge Runners and other Cyberpunk properties as well. We have characters like T-Bug, Evelyn Parker, obviously we have characters like V and Jackie Wells, and what you do is you essentially assemble your crew. When you're making a deck, you will choose 3 legend cards to form your crew. For this deck, we have Victor Vector, V, and Jackie Wells. We'll talk about the differences between these cards and other cards, but just know that you're kind of building your deck around these 3 cards and what they do. And the game essentially centers around playing cards, playing units, cards that represent characters or robots in some cases, like the secondhand Bombus here. Just, you know, characters and units and things in Cyberpunk. All with the goal of starting your turn with 6 gigs. Now, what are gigs? These dice. These are gig dice. Anytime the game references gigs, it's talking about these dice. Now, you get 1 gig dice every single turn. In fact, you get to choose which one you want, with the exception of the D20. This will be the last one that you are able to choose, but you will basically start your turn by rolling one of these dice, and it'll be the gig that you get for the turn. Once again, the goal of the game is to get 6 gig dice, to start your turn with 6 gig dice. Now, you can also steal your opponent's gig, and that's kind of like the give and take of this game. You want to get gig dice. You get 1 a turn, your opponent gets 1 a turn, and you want to steal their gig while protecting your gigs. And I know right off the bat, people might be put off by like dice, or like, oh no, dice, it's incredibly random. However, I will say that while higher numbers do equal better results for this game just in general, for the dice, they don't mean all that much. And we'll talk about what the gig dice actually do other than being a way to win the game, because they actually also represent your street cred, and some cards will care about street cred in the game. But for the most part, it's not as swingy as you might think. If you roll like a, I don't know, like a 1 on one of your gig dice, it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. It's not going to determine whether you win or lose. What will determine whether you win or lose is how you play the game and how you strategize your sequencing and what cards that you play. And let's talk about the kind of cards in the game. So the Cyberpunk TCG is a really simple game when you boil everything down. There's only 4 different types of cards in the game right now, at least on launch, and 3 of them go in your main deck, and then you have your legend. Now, as I mentioned, we'll talk about the legends first because they're extremely important. Legends are cards that start in play face down. And as I mentioned before, you build your deck by choosing 3 legends. You will shuffle these up at the start of the game, so you actually don't know what they are, and they start face down. Now, you actually use these as resources or eddies to play other cards, and you can also play other cards face down also as eddies. We'll talk about how to do that when the time comes. It's very, very simple, but just know that you start the game with your legends and you use these as resources, which is great. You can also turn them face up by paying 2 eddies, and some of them will have various effects when turned face up, like Victor Vector here. When he's flipped up, you can search the top 5 cards of your deck for up to 2 gear cards that cost 2 or less each, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Once Victor is flipped up, you can still use him to pay for eddies, but he'll stay flipped up and he'll just kind of like hang out. Other legends like Jackie Wells will have persistent effects. I think Jackie's actually really, really good. This one just says, the first time you play a blue unit or blue gear each turn, you may increase a friendly gig. Once again, gig are dice. You can increase one of our friendly gig dice by 2. Then if it's at max value, you draw a card, which is extremely good. So this increases our gig dice, so we can actually increase our street cred, but also get to draw cards. And as I mentioned, we'll talk about street cred in just a moment. It's essentially just the added total of all of your gig dice. It's very simple. It doesn't really matter until a card references it. And then we also have legends that can go solo, which I think is a great flavor thing because solos are a class type in Cyberpunk. So this V, the V Corporate Exile legend, once you flip this face up as your legend, you can then pay an additional 5 either on this turn or a future turn, and then they become a unit that you can actually use to attack or maybe defend with if they have a defend mechanic. So pretty sweet. This V has 8 power as designated down here, and you'll see that on other unit cards as well. So like this Flathead has 5 power down here. So having a legend being able to become a unit is pretty powerful because, you know, you have access to this almost at all times. However, once again, these are randomized at the start of the game. So when you choose to flip one over, it's kind of like a little bit of a gamble. There are some cards that let you kind of like take a little peek so you can kind of know what you're doing here, but yeah. The one other thing I want to mention with legends, and this is really, really important, and not something that I've seen a lot of folks go over when talking about the Cyberpunk TCG yet, is the timing on when you can flip these over. So your legends can be flipped over once per turn for a cost of 2 eddies, right? And it can be the eddies that you spend. So say you have these 3 available and you spend these 2, you can choose one of these to flip over as well, which is pretty relevant, right? But also you can choose to flip over a legend on our opponent's turn when they attack us. And we'll talk about attacking and all that kind of stuff later. But this is really important because this is the only time we can actually interact with our opponent on their turn, is flipping up one of our legends. And once again, it will have the same cost. It'll cost 2. And there's a window between when they choose to attack and when we choose, when we're going to decide if we're going to block or not, when we can flip up our legends. Now, currently in this alpha kit, there's not really a reason to do that right now. There's not any effects that kill an attacker or something like that, but there might be in the future, right? So there might be legends that have combat tricks like built into them. And by combat trick, I mean an effect that could have, changed the course of combat, like either shrinking our opponent's attacker. Keep that in mind. It's not super relevant right now with these alpha kits, but it is something that can come up. You can flip over your legend on our opponent's turn, specifically when they are attacking us. So those are legends. Let's go ahead and talk about the 3 kind of cards that are found in the main deck. It's pretty simple, actually. We have units, we have gear, and we have programs. Units are the just grunt work of our deck. They're our units. They're the dudes that we play out. They help us attack, they help us defend, all of that good stuff. We'll go deeper into units in just a moment. We also have gear. You can think of gear as things that augment our units, give them additional abilities and power and maybe ways to remove our opponent's stuff. And finally, we have programs. Think of programs as spells. They're basically just like one-shot effects. You do the thing, and then it's done. And once again, I would like to reiterate here, there is no fast timing, no instant speed timing in the Cyberpunk trading card game, with the exception of flipping up your legends during combat, during opponent's combat. So keep that in mind. The programs like Florit here, which has a cost at the top. This costs 3 eddies to play. It says return a spent unit, so a unit that is spent, turned sideways, with a cost 4 less to its owner's hand. This you only do this during your turn. You can't do this on our opponent's turn as an effect. So this is kind of like a slow speed or sorcery speed, if you're familiar with those kind of game mechanics. So you play programs on your turn. All right, so let's go into these a little bit deeper and kind of talk about exactly what they do. So here we have Jackie Wells, a pretty powerful unit. The cost is up here at the top. So the cost is always at the top here in the Cyberpunk trading card game. So this costs 6 eddies. We also have this number here. It has a X3. This is RAM. This is a deck building restriction. So we see RAM here times 3. We also see RAM here times 2. So the RAM on the legends determines the RAM that you can have in your main deck. So for example, we have Jackie Wells and V. V has a times 2 blue, Jackie has a times 2 blue. So that means we can have a total of times 4 blues in our deck. So any blue card in our deck can be times 4 or lower. We can have any number of those, right? Any number of times 4 or lower in the deck. If we are only running Victor Vector here, who has a yellow times 2, well, then we actually would not be able to run Jackie Wells in the deck because Jackie has a times 3, which is higher than Victor's. So this is just a deck building thing, this number here. It's something that helps, I think, make deck building more interesting than just being like, oh, throw in all the best blue cards and all the best whatever. You need to kind of build your deck specifically around your crew here, around your legends. Like quite literally, you have to build your deck around them because of this mechanic here. So keep that in mind. On the bottom corner, this is Jackie Wells' power. Power has some effect. It has effect in combat, but it also has effect in how many gigs we steal from our opponent. Jackie says this unit gets +2 power for each of our friendly gigs, which is great. So, say we have these, well, let's say we have these 4 gig. Jackie would get an additional 8 power, which is quite strong, especially because you steal an extra gig for every 10 power when we hit our opponent directly. So for Jackie, even if we have just 2 gig and Jackie is up to 10, if we were able to successfully hit our opponent, we would steal 2 of their gig. And keep in mind, we only need 6 gig to win the game, which is relevant. The games of Cyberpunk are pretty fast because there are stopgaps and limits on how long things can last, just because, well, you need a certain number of gig to win. So yeah, that's units. Once again, we play units on our turn. We can attack with units starting the turn after they are played. They can't attack immediately. And some units have a blocker keyword, like this second-hand Bombus, which says when a rival unit attacks, you can spend this unit, which once again, spend means turn it sideways, to redirect the attack to this. So you don't have any innate way to block. You need cards with blocker to block our opponent's stuff. Otherwise, they can just attack you indiscriminately. Maybe that's kind of a deck you want to build. Maybe you are shields down all in, but some decks will want to play more defensive stuff like the Bombus. Combat in the Cyberpunk TCG is extremely simple. As I mentioned, you cannot block your opponent's stuff unless you have a card specifically with blocker. And when you attack your opponent, you can either choose to attack them directly, or you can choose to attack any one of their spent units. And you can, target attack as you will. So keep that in mind. When you attack with 1 unit at a time. So say we're going to attack with Jackie Wells. And then when we attack with him, we can choose whether or not we want to attack one of their spent units, or if we want to attack them directly to try to steal one of their gig. If the attack goes through and hits them directly, we can choose any one of their gig that they have currently out, and then we steal it. It is now our gig. It counts for us for street cred, and it counts for us for winning the game. If they choose to block, well then that blocker becomes the attack target, and then we go to damage. If they don't choose to block and we're attacking a unit, then we go to damage. And the way that damage and combat works in Cyberpunk, it's super simple. You literally just compare the numbers, right? Bigger number wins. If there's a tie, both of them are defeated. And like I said, whoever has the bigger number ends up winning. The loser is, discarded, gone. Flatlined, if you will. And essentially, if you're a longtime TCG player, you might ask, well, is there combat damage? Does damage persist throughout the turn? And the answer is no. Essentially, the way it works is that combats are kind of treated as like little microcosms of their own, and say these two are fighting and Jackie Wells wins. Well, it's not like the Flathead dealt 5 damage to Jackie, and if Jackie's somehow able to attack and gets blocked again, the damage would add up. That's not how this works. It's just Jackie wins, that's it. And if Jackie somehow is able to fight again during that turn, it would be treated as a completely separate encounter. Because of that, I think combat is actually very simple, right? It's kind of makes the game flow very, very well. The way that the combat works is, once again, once you get to the combat phase, which is the last phase of your turn, we'll talk about turn structures in a moment as well. You basically attack one at a time, choose the attack targets. Because there's no instant speed timing or instant speed windows other than the whole legend thing, then you can kind of really pick and choose how you want to go about things. Sequencing is really, really important, and having blockers to defend yourself is also really, really important. Now let's talk about the other 2 card types here. We also have gear. Gear, once again, cost is up at the top. RAM is over here. This is the deck building restriction. The number down here is the modifier. So this gives +2 to any unit or face-up legend that we have, which is great. So if we have V going solo, we can actually equip V with her Dying Knight pistol, and she would get that +2 bonus, being 10, which is, as I said, very good because we're able to steal 2 gigs at 10. Essentially, you can kind of think of these as buffs for your squad. These are permanent buffs that sit around until removed, and they provide bonuses. So this one in particular provides a +2 power bonus on the bottom, and then also it has an attack effect. So on attack, if you have 7 or more street cred, defeat a rival gear that costs 2 or less, which is great. So it helps us destroy our opponent's gear if they've got like some nasty stuff going on. Once again, street cred doesn't matter until a card references it. And what street cred is specifically, as I mentioned, it's just the sum total of all of your gig. So say you have, I'm just going to do this randomly, say you have these gig out, 10, 3, and 1. Our total street cred is 14 here. So 7 is actually not too hard to get, especially since, as I mentioned before, when you roll your gig dice every single turn, you get 1 of these every single turn. You can choose which one you want to roll, with the exception of the D20. So if you wanted to go like guns blazing right out, you can roll the D12 here and try to get a high roll, like this 11, and start off the game with 11 for street cred. Now that number, once again, only matters for street cred, doesn't matter for anything else. Unless there's an effect also that cares about it, like Jackie pumping it up to max level and drawing a card once it hits max level, that kind of stuff. And this increments every turn. So every turn you choose a new gig to roll, and every turn you get a new one, which is nice. Once again, it also makes a stopgap to the game length, because once you get to 6, well, the game ends and you win. Or if you steal your opponents. So yeah, that's gear. Gear is great. Use it to pump up your dudes, your squad, your units. And then finally, once again, we have programs. They're just one-shot effects. You do the effect when you play it. Here's the cost, and here's the effect. Very, very simple. We also have type lines here. So this is a plan Merc. I didn't mention the type lines over here, but for Dying Knight, we have type line Weapon Merc. And then for Jackie, we have Merc. Other cards will reference types. So for example, For the Arasaka deck, so here we have the Arasaka deck with Saburo Arasaka. He gives all of our Arasaka units +1 power, 1 attacking. So that's relevant for some of the decks. The last and final thing I want to mention for card types is this thing right here in the top corner. This little money symbol, that is the Eddie symbol. And you can find this on any card. Or at least, well, yeah, you can find this on any card. I like how they put it on the legends, just so you know you can actually spend them for Eddies. Basically what this means is this is a kind of card that you can play down and sell it for Eddies. So once per turn, you can put a card in your hand with the Eddie symbol face down, and then you can then use it to pay for resources, pay for Eddies. Once it's down there, it's down there. They might make effects later in the game that you can, manipulate these and get them back or something. But currently, once you play it down, it's down. So choosing what cards you play down as Eddies is really, really important. Also, building your deck with a decent amount of cards that have Eddies, also really, really important. So you can actually put them down and be able to afford to play some of your other stuff here. All right, so finally, let's talk about how you prepare a game of Cyberpunk TCG and run through a turn or two, just to kind of give you an idea of how the game flows. As I mentioned a few times, it's actually very, very simple, especially once you understand how things work in the game. So what we have our main deck here and our legends. Make sure to actually sleeve your legends and main deck in different sleeves, because it actually matters. As you play cards down as Eddies, you still need to know which ones are your legends, so you can then flip them up later and not accidentally flip up one of the cards that you played down as an Eddie. So keep that in mind. So we have our 3 legends. We're going to be shuffling these up because they are random. We don't know what they are, and these start the game face down. We also have our main deck all shuffled up. I'm just going to give this a cut, even though I already shuffled it quite a bit off screen. And then we have our gig dice. We're going to set these off to the side. These will kind of live in a limbo space until we actually roll them. Our opponent is not able to interact with these when they're off to the side. I believe the proper terminology for this off space area is called your fixer. Like, you get the gig dice from your fixer, which also flavorfully makes a lot of sense. But just keep in mind, we have our dice. We're going to keep them off. We'll set them in the screen here, but these are not in play. We'll put the gig dice that we have in play up at the top here. So we have our deck. We have our legends. Now we choose play order. So you just rock, paper, scissors, or any randomized way that works for you. You can roll some dice. I personally like to roll all the gig dice to see who goes first. Roll all of them, add them up, and see who goes first. That's my suggested way of doing it, because I think it's the most fun, but you could do whatever works for you. To begin, each player will draw a starting hand of 6 cards. So this is a 6-card starting hand, and we do have a mulligan. We have 1 mulligan, and to do that, we just shuffle our entire hand back into the deck, and then we draw 6 new cards. It's not like a partial mulligan or anything. You literally shuffle it all back and draw 6. So we're going to look at our opening hand. All right, this is not bad. So when I'm looking at my opening hand for the Cyberpunk TCG, essentially I'm looking for 2 things. I'm looking for a number of low-cost units. So like T-Bug here is a pretty nice low-cost unit. She only costs 3 to play, so we can get something down on the board and start pressuring our opponent early. And I'm also looking for cards with the Eddie symbol, so we can actually sell them and have more resources and have more Eddies. So this is a keepable hand. I would definitely keep this one. We also have a couple powerful cards, at least one in particular. We have the Flathead, which actually can't be blocked if we have 7 or more street cred, which is pretty good. It's a high cost card, it's 5, but this gives us some inevitability that we can kind of work towards, while we have some of our grunt units like the Delamain Cab here and T-Bug. I also want to mention a nice little combination with Reboot Optics and Delamain Cab just in our opening hand, which is kind of nice to have. I didn't plan on this. So Reboot Optics is a program. We can also sell it for Eddies, which is nice, but we could use it for a nice big swing. It costs 2, and it says, give your friendly unit +4 power this turn, and then you defeat it at the end of turn. Which, that's a double-edged sword, quite literally. We lose our unit, but if we play it on something and give it more than 10 power, then we can get that double steal. So we got Delamain Cab and Reboot Optics in our hand. So the turn after we play Delamain Cab, we can Reboot Optics onto it, giving it +4, making it 11, so we can actually steal 2 if our opponent doesn't have a lot of stuff going on. So that's a consideration for this opening hand. And because of that, and because of the low cost stuff and all the sellable cards, we're gonna keep this hand. Our opponent then also does the same, and then we begin the game. Before we start, one really important thing to note: whoever's going first actually starts the game with 2 of their legends already spent. So you only actually have access to your 1 legend and then any other card that you want to play from your hand as an Eddie. So just keep that in mind as the first turn player. So let's say we are the first turn player. We have drawn our hand, we've done our mulligans, we have our 2 legends spent at the start of our turn, we have our 6 card hand. Let's go ahead and go into our first turn and kind of walk you through all of the sequences. It's actually very, very simple. So first of all, we draw a card. That's nice. Yes, first turn player does draw a card, so that's pretty good. We get to draw a card, and then we gain a gig. Now this is where we roll one of our gig dice. As I mentioned before, you can pick any gig dice to roll with the exception of the D20 here. Let's kind of go in the middle-ish of the road. We'll roll this D8 here. So we roll it, we got a 6, and so that is our first gig. We'll kind of put it up here in our gig line. So we have street cred of 6 now and 1 gig. And then we ready our spent cards. Once again, we start with these 2 spent. They will not ready, so these are just spent. Now we can kind of go into our first turn. We get these on our second turn, don't worry. But just for the first turn, it's kind of like a balancing mechanic, right? So we're gonna look at our hand, and we're basically gonna want to play a card as an Eddie. So during the play phase, we can play cards, we can flip legends, or once per turn, we can sell a card for Eddies. I think it's called, yeah, just called sell for Eddies. So we have these 2 Floret cards that have the Eddie icon. And so in order to do that, you just take it and you tell your opponent, I'm gonna sell this Floret for Eddies. You do have to reveal it, so it's not a little cheeky. It's not a little cheeky like trying to get one over on your opponent. So yeah, I'm gonna sell this Floret for Eddies, and now I actually have access to 2 Eddies here. Do we have anything to play on the turn? We do not, because our lowest cost thing that we can actually play is a T-Bug for 3. Now, while I don't have the ability to play T-Bug this turn, I can still do one other thing, because during the play phase, you can actually still flip up one of your legends. So let's go ahead and do that. We can pay 2, and that's how much it costs to flip a legend. You can do this once per turn, and it costs 2. So we'll pay 2, and then you choose one of these at random. Let's just choose the middle one. I actually don't know what this is, and we'll flip it up. Ooh, okay, we got V here. And there you go. We flipped up our V. Doing this gives us one, kind of an insight as to what the other legends are if we want a specific effect, and 2, prepares us for future turns, which is very, very nice. I should also mention at this point in time that there is no hand size limit in the game, because this is all we're going to do on this turn. We don't have to discard down to anything. There's no hand size limit. So we would just pass the turn to our opponent, and they would do basically the same stuff we just did. Maybe play something, play some Eddies. Maybe they want to flip up one of their legends or play a unit. So let's say the turn comes back to us. So we would start the turn by drawing a card. So you draw first, then you gain a gig. So let's roll a gig, and then we set all of our stuff here as ready. We ready all of our spent cards. And now we begin our turn. We have 4 resources now. It's really interesting as the first turn player, because on the first turn, you'll have access to 2 resources, but on the second turn, you'll actually have access to 5 resources. So here, we got a really, really nice gear with Dying Light here, or Dying Night. I'm gonna go ahead and sell this other copy of Floret as Eddies. So now we have 5, which is quite good. We can actually just jam out our Flathead, which is really, really, really good tempo here. What I would do in this situation, I think I would just jam out the Flathead. So I would spend all 5 of my Eddies, my 3 legends, and then the 2 Eddies that I sold, and I would play my Flathead. Now, the Flathead has 5 power down here, and it says if I have 7 or more street cred, this unit can't be blocked. I have 11 street cred. I have the 5 and the 6. So this is unblockable, which is sweet. But I can't attack with it on the turn that it came into play. So I'm just going to kind of sit here and hang out. Now, of course, our opponent would have their turn. Perhaps they want to attack us, steal our gig. So let's go ahead and take our next turn and kind of show you how combat works and playing some gear, because I think it's going to line up very, very nicely. So I have the urge to always set all this stuff as ready first, but no. The order is you draw a card first. We drew a Bombus there. Then we roll our gig dice. That's a 2. Then we set everything as ready. And then we can play stuff. So we could actually, if we wanted to, play V. We could have played V on the last turn, actually. Because V is a legend that has Go Solo, we can pay the cost to send her out. What's really cool about the Go Solo legends is once you go solo with them, so we pay 5 here, and we go solo with V, she actually readies and then can attack immediately when she comes out. They're pretty powerful, as they should be, because they're legends. So that is an option. We could have paid 5, gotten V, and then jammed in. Once they're out here, you can no longer use them for eddies. By the way, they're no longer able to be used for eddies. And when they die, they just die. They don't come back to the eddy zone or anything like that. They're just gone. So keep that in mind. It's kind of like a little bit of a give and take there. But I didn't want to send out my V. I kind of wanted to just build up our resources, and we had a good powerful unit in our hand anyway with the flathead. And this also will help us go into a very powerful attack turn. So these are the cards in our hand. We are basically we're gonna go all in. So this is what we're gonna do on this turn. I'm not sure if this would be advisable, like competitively speaking, but it's fun, and I think it will illustrate two big things. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pay 2, and we're gonna put the Dying Knight onto our flathead. So this is a gear. It's gonna give us +2, and we also have this really nasty attack trigger if we have 7 or more street cred, which we definitely do. So we're gonna put the Dying Knight onto the flathead, making it have 7 attack. And then what we could do is we have a couple options. So we could put the Reboot Optics and sell it as eddies, and then we'll have 4 eddies available, and we could play something like a Delamain Cab. We could also play something like a secondhand Bombus and flip one of the other legends. Or we could be extremely aggressive and play Reboot Optics onto our flathead, giving it +4, thereby boosting it over the threshold to steal 2. So we could, if we wanted to be really aggressive, we could do this and play this on the flathead. It's a one-time effect, so it would have 11 total, and it's unblockable, and we have the Dying Knight. This is not a strategy that I would typically go for, but for the purposes of this, let's just go for it. Let's go for it. So I'm gonna play the Reboot Optics for 2, increasing flathead by 4 and making it have 11 attack. And then we're gonna jam in with the flathead. Now our opponent has opportunity to basically turn up one of their legends if their legend could affect this at all. Once again, there is no instant speed programs or units or anything like that in this game. The only way that they can interact with combat is if they have a blocker, but in this case it wouldn't matter because the flathead is unblockable anyway, or if they had a thing to flip up. I should also note that we also have an attack trigger from the Dying Knight. So when we're attacking, since we have 7 or more street cred, we can defeat one of their rival gear that costs 2 or less. So if they have a unit out there that has some gear on it, well, we can blow up their gear. Perhaps they have something like this really powerful Satori from the Arasaka deck that has a cost of 2, and it's just a really, really nice card. So we can blow up their Satori. They cannot block us. We're gonna hit them. We have 11 as our attack, so we would steal 2 of their dice. So after we steal 2 of their dice, we move it over to our side. We will now have 5 dice. which is really scary because next turn, unless they're able to steal dice from us, we would roll another dice and then have 6. And if we start the turn with 6, then we win the game. Now, I would not recommend this. This is really risky because our opponent can then attack us back and steal our dice. And Reboot Optics also defeats our own unit at the end of the turn. So this would actually just get flatlined and die. So not recommended. What I would actually do, if you're like, oh, what would you actually do in this situation? I think it'd be better to be a little bit more tempered. And I like the play where I sell the Reboot Optics as an Eddy, and then I really like getting out the Bombus here. So I would do 2, play out the Bombus, and then I would do another 2 to flip up one of our other legends. And here we got Jackie Wells, fantastic legend. As we mentioned before, Jackie gives us ability to draw cards, which is very powerful. The first time we play a blue unit or gear each turn, we can increase the friendly gig by 2, and then if it's the max value, we get a draw card. So that's really, really nice. So this is what I would actually do. I would play out the Bombus, play out the Jackie, or flip up one of our legends, and go from there. If you already knew that you were going to flip up one of your legends on the turn, that might have been one of the first things that you wanted to do just to see what legend you got, because it might have had an effect that could change other things that you might do for the turn. In fact, if we got Victor Vector, who lets us grab 2 gear cards from the top 5, well, it could have maybe given us another card to sell, or rather a different card to sell for Eddies. So keep that in mind. Sequencing is really, really important in this, and sometimes it's good to flip up your legends just to see what you get if you knew you're going to flip up a legend no matter what. But either way, this is a pretty solid turn. We got a 0-2 blocker out here with the Bombus. It's a 0-2 blocker, but it can't attack, so it's just purely defensive. And then we also have our Flathead. So now we would go to combat, and once again, we would attack our opponent. This cannot be blocked. If they had a legend they wanted to flip up for an effect, they could do that. But since this couldn't be blocked, we're having the attack trigger go off, and then we'll hit them and steal one of their gig dice. And now we also have a blocker to protect both the dice that we just stole and the dice that we currently have. And that's essentially how the game goes. Back and forth, getting your gig dice, stealing your opponent's gig dice, dealing with their board, sequencing things, getting your legends out there. You can have explosive turns, like I said, with just going solo, getting the ability to attack immediately. A nice little combo with this deck. It makes a lot of sense, but you get your V out there and then you immediately equip Dying Knight so you can get the double steal just right off the bat, which is really, really strong. And then just battle back and forth until someone starts their turn with 6 dice. Now, there is an overtime. And basically how overtime works is after all of the gig dice are rolled, the D20, once again, is the last one. But after each player has gone a turn without rolling a gig dice from their fixer area, then you go into overtime. And basically how overtime works is the moment one player has 7 dice, they win. And it's not like an end of turn thing. The moment one player has 7 dice, the game ends, they win. And that is how to play the Cyberpunk trading card game. It's really, really simple. And once you kind of get a grasp of the rules, the games are quite quick because there's like a hard cap on how long games can last just because of how overtime works and how easy it is to attack your opponent and steal their gig. The complexity of the Cyberpunk TCG doesn't lie with the core game mechanics, which is a great thing in my opinion. It means that the game is very, very approachable for new players, both new players to TCGs in general, but also new players to the Cyberpunk trading card game. No, the complexity lies within the cards themselves, the mechanics printed on the cards, and the interactions that you can build in your decks between your legends, your units, your gear, and all of your programs. It creates this kind of easy to learn experience while simultaneously giving veteran players or players who are looking for something a little bit deeper more to sink their teeth into once we get more powerful and complicated cards and effects. And that's going to do it for the video. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time and watching this How to Play Cyberpunk TCG video, especially if you are still here at the end. We really went deep into it, but I wanted to cover all the bases and I wanted to be very, very clear about everything and you know, kind of cover stuff that I personally would ask as a TCG player learning a brand new game, and that stuff that I figure that other folks would like to ask as well, both as new players to TCGs and new players to this specific TCG, the Cyberpunk trading card game. So yeah, I just want to say thank you all for being here and watching the video. Let me know if you have any questions about the rules in the comments down below. Another huge thank you and shout out to Weirdco and the Cyberpunk TCG for sponsoring this video. And absolutely stay tuned for more Cyberpunk TCG content here on Red Zone Rogue. You can be rest assured that I plan on covering this game quite a bit going forward. Thank you all once again, and we'll see you next time.